Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Saturday night, Halloween weekend, and I'm finishing up some work, and then I'm gonna go out with some friends. But I was sitting here contemplating some things. I was cruising through YouTube, like I do sometimes when I'm trying to procrastinate, and I was looking around, and this is not to down any particular YouTuber, but I look through the comments a lot of times on my videos and some other videos, and there's so many people out there who are so confused about their fitness journey because there's so many conflicting pieces of advice out there. It seems like everybody's got their own shtick, everybody's got their own thing, and a lot of fitness people, they latch on to something and they use it as their flag. You know, whether it's keto, whether it's vegan, whether it is paleo, whether it is bro splits, whether it is push pull. You know, everybody's got their own shtick, their own thing that they're trying to push. And so the question came up in my mind is, I don't want to say that all fitness advice sucks, but why is so much fitness advice not working for people? Because there's tons of stuff out here on YouTube. There's tons of stuff out here on social media. A lot of people are giving stuff away for free. So just to simplify things, I'll just say it. Why does so much fitness advice suck? Why does so much of it not work? And I think it goes back to a few different things. The first is this. And again, this is not to down anybody here on YouTube, but there is a kind of fallacy that exists when we see somebody that has really good genetics and really a really great physique. They look great, they look the part, and they're doing things a certain way. Now, this is not to fault that particular person if that's what they're doing, but they tend to tell people what they're doing. And one of the things, I don't know if any of you pay attention to the author Tim Ferriss, he runs a podcast, but one of the things he does when he's looking for a coach is he looks to see the successes that coach has had and whether or not that coach has been able to take people who do not have very high genetic potential and bring them from point zero to point one, right? Make them from a zero to a one, where they've been able to excel. Has that coach been able to create champions out of people who did not have a lot of genetic potential to begin with? Now, he's not particularly talking about bodybuilding or powerlifting or anything like that. He's talking about a lot of different types of sports and also business ventures and things like that. But for us, on YouTube, there are a lot of people on YouTube who have a particular, high genetic rating. And that's not to say that everybody who looks amazing and everybody who seems to have great genetics is giving out bad advice. But for us, when we approach these things, one of the questions we really have to ask ourselves is, has this person had successes with people who might not have the genetic potential that he or she does? And so we really have to look into that and look into whether or not that person has been able to translate that success to someone else. And that's something you should all do when you're trying to start to follow fitness advice. The other part of this has to do with science and the way science works and the fact that science in many ways is imperfect. It's not meant to be perfect. It's meant to be a constant investigation in search of the truth. It is never the truth in and of itself. Now, we see a lot of people on YouTube, they'll break out studies, they'll break out things to support what they're saying, and that's good. You want people to be pointing toward peer-reviewed journals. But then you also have to ask yourself, what type of study was that? Was that study done on human subjects? Was that study an epidemiological study, which means are they just looking at numbers data from surveys and different data sets that they've pulled from various places, and are they just running regression models on it, which is a mathematical formula that shows you statistical trends in results. I'm a statistician by training, but I don't want to get into the super science behind that because it could be very confusing. But you want to see what types of studies are. Now, in general, those epidemiological studies, they tend to be weaker when it comes down to actually understanding mechanisms, because one of the things you get taught when you learn statistics is that correlation is not necessarily causation. So you really want to look at the model they're using, which is the mathematical formula that they're using to generate their numbers and the results. But you also want to see if this has been replicated in human subjects. And if it has not, is there what they call a meta study out there that takes a lot of different data sets and experiments that have been run over time and does an analysis of all the studies that have ever been done on that particular subject. Um, human st- human trials are obviously the best form. You also want to look at the number of people involved in the experiments. Has the experiment just been done on mice? And in a lot of ways, that biology might not be able to translate to mice. And again, I'm not trying to get all super academic with you guys, but I'm just trying to explain to you in I guess for lack of a better term, why shit's all fucked up and why things can be so confusing. So, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do in this type of situation? Well, in the best case scenario, you have to understand that one, your biology and your environmental factors, the I guess in scientific terms, what we call the intervening variables, they might be different from the people you're following. They might be different from everybody that you're seeing on social media, and so you really need to consider what's going on with you. Now, ways you can do that, there's this huge movement in I guess you could say wellness right now, because it's not really breaking into YouTube fitness for some reason, but there's a lot of trainers and what they call biohackers, again, for lack of a better term, that are quantifying themselves, where they're doing things like taking their heart rate variability every day to see if they're overtraining, where they're doing things like going to Wellness FX and getting tested for a lot of different things, anywhere from your hemoglobin A1C, your vitamin levels, your nutrient levels, your lipids. They're basically looking at every aspect of your blood to see what types of recommendations can be made for you nutritionally. Now, I do keto. I'm a fat burner. It works for me, but it might not work for you. And the only way to 100% definitively tell this is if you run one of these tests on yourself. The problem for many of you is going to be that this is pretty damn expensive. And so am I going to sit here and say every one of you has to go out there and get yourself quantified? No, but you should be checking with your physician. You should be checking, your blood work, of course. But not every one of you is going to be able to afford to get these super investigative blood tests done on yourself, or the 23andMe genetic tests, which actually aren't that expensive. I do recommend everybody try to get a 23andMe done to see what your genetics call for. And then, a lot of people are going to qualified physicians. I just had Dr. Anthony G. Beck on the Warrior Soul podcast, and we talked a bit about what he does with his patients. But for the rest of you who might not be able to afford to do this, what do you do? And the answer is this, and this is not optimal. This is not easy, but the answer is that you have to continually experiment with yourself. It's going to be trial and error. And I know I probably sound like a broken record on this, where I'm saying, you got to try things out. You got to try things out for yourself. You got to run experiments on yourself for months at a time to see if something works. And that's the damn truth. You've got to continually be questioning what you're told. Stop taking things from YouTube at face value. Stop taking things from social media at face value, but run your own experiments and see where it takes you. And there's a lot of people out there who do talk about the experiment of one, how to run a good experiment on yourself to see if something works. Switch up your programming, switch up your nutrition, see what type of effect it'll have on you. What I will say is that the best way to do this is to make incremental changes, particularly with your nutrition. Don't just go and add 50, 60 grams of protein, because you don't know if having less than that could have a little bit more than what you were doing, but less than like 100 grams could have actually had the impact, without stuffing yourself with extra protein and experiencing the digestive issues and increased toxicity that would bring to you. So experiment with yourself, do incremental experiments, and again, whenever you hear something here on social media, try to put your own investigation in. Start to try to understand how to read some of these journal articles. And then the other thing is, understand that the journal articles themselves don't necessarily mean that just because something was published in a peer-reviewed journal, while it's the highest standard we could look for as far as an academic paper, you also have to understand that, like everything else in this world, academia is also pretty political. And the people who run the journals, even though things are peer-reviewed, they get to select what actually gets peer-reviewed and what doesn't. They actually get to select what order the articles go into. And I know this because I used to be a doctoral candidate, and I was taught a lot about the peer-reviewed system. Not a doctoral candidate in nutrition or anything like that. I was a political scientist. But the peer review system is the same across academia. So that's about it. We've got a lot of awesome stuff going on this channel. I created some new playlists. A lot of really awesome stuff going on with the Warrior Soul podcast with my new co-host, Andrew Marr, retired Special Forces operator. Some great things going on at warriorsoulfitness.com, warriorsoulagoji.com, and of course, at chrisalbertfitness.com. If you're looking for more fitness content that I produced in the past, definitely check that out. But until then, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, you want me to clear anything up, write your comments below, email me, go check out chrisalbertfitness.com. If I haven't answered anything there, then hit me up. I'm happy to answer your questions. So talk to you later.